Brown.
Here.
Vice Mayor Sartori. Councilmember Brandon. Councilmember Painter.
Here.
Councilmember French.
Here.
Thank you. And our first agenda item today is a discussion on code updates presented by Jay.
Good evening, Jay Hupsch, Community Development Director. I'm going to break my presentation up into two different presentations. The first one is on ordinances 326, 426, and 526. These will be coming to you at the next council meeting. Due to the sheer volume of code updates we had, Dylan and Keith wisely advised us to break them up and have them over two separate meetings. So those first three ordinances will come to you next week, and then the remaining updates will come to you at a future meeting either in April or May. And my next presentation will go through those other ones. So first, ordinance 0326 touches on hours of construction. As you remember, we amended the hours of construction in 2025. There was one code section that did not get updated to reflect the new hours. So this is just kind of cleaning that up. So it's really just a glitch. The second one is green building incentives. You may recall I workshopped this with you guys last year, and that's creating a green building incentive program. The EAC has kind of prioritized this, and I think the council has as well. Common green building incentives, property tax abatements, expedited permitting, reduction of permitting fees, grants or rebates, density bonuses, height bonuses. Again, because we're not I would say big or well-off city like Miami or Chicago or some of these big cities that offer robust financial rebates for green building. We had to kind of get creative. So what we're really proposing to hone in on is expedited permitting inspections and reduction of permitting fees. That box is actually wrong. So it's reduction of permitting, expedited permitting, and then the things that we do not want to do are density bonuses and height bonuses, right? That's a non-starter to Cuesta. So we are really not able to even attempt to offer those in exchange for green building. I've talked to Wayne Cameron, and he's agreed to do expedited plan review and inspections for qualifying green building projects. So the way that would work was if someone was going through this program, they would get bumped up in the queue, right? If you had two different sets of plan review to look at, you would look at the one doing green building first. You kind of prioritize inspections as well. So it's not a huge deal, but it's a small carrot. The bigger one would be to offer financial incentives by reduction of permit fees. So we looked at what the general cost is of the actual certification itself. So of course, people that are doing green building are going to have to spend a lot more money to actually, become qualified. But not only that, they're also having to pay money for the certification itself. You all may be familiar with LEED. That's kind of the gold standard of green building. Those are the most expensive. The Florida Green Building Council and the National Green Building are a little bit less. And then Energy Star is even less than that one. So again, same thing on commercial projects. LEED is substantially more expensive than the others. And because of that, we created this tiered system. I think I showed this to you all last year. But basically, so there's 4 different tiers of certifications for each of the green building, right? So LEED, you get LEED Platinum, Gold, or Silver, or Certified. And so the reduction in your permit fee corresponds with the level of certification you go to, right? So if you're doing LEED Platinum, you're obviously spending a ton of money and you're paying a lot to certify it. So the idea is to give it a little bit more of a permit fee reduction. And Wayne Cameron has also agreed that the building department could handle a small permit fee reduction like these. Another one is construction site requirements. So the building department has a manual for construction site maintenance. They do implement it quite a bit. So when you're seeing new homes and teardowns happening, they are trying to enforce this. However, it is not actually codified. So we wanted to put it in the code just in case someone was pushing back against it. They would be able to take code enforcement action on somebody. So the manual requires a temporary construction fence. It requires all construction activities to take place inside the fence, and it requires a silt fence on construction sites. The next one is Ordinance 0426. This is public notice. As you recall, a few years ago, the state changed the law so that you don't have to do public notice in newspapers. You can do it on a public notice portal. This is simply just clarifying in the code that we're able to do public notice in that portal and not a newspaper. So it's really just a cleanup. Another one is something that's come up a few times actually, which is special exceptions. We're one of the rare places that has special exceptions only go to council and not be reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Board when there's a site plan. The Planning and Zoning Board has frequently asked for that when we have a site plan that has a special exception. They've really said, well, why aren't we getting a look at this? So we've added this in the code. However, we've exempted the ones that have the expedited review. If you remember when we did the commercial overlays, there's that expedited process. So if someone was doing a tenant change out, so if like 3 Natives was changing out to be a Golden Juicery, that wouldn't trigger going to Planning and Zoning Board because it would qualify for this expedited review that would go straight to council. Ordinance 0526, so this is something that came up in December, the December council meeting related to certified recovery residences. And as you recall, by January 1st, 2026, the governing body of each county or city shall adopt an ordinance establishing procedures for review and approval of certified recovery residences. And so it's essentially called a reasonable accommodation process. As you recall, you adopted this through Ordinance 1225. I came up to the podium and said that because I think the council had said, was there a way to make this not an administrative staff review? Can we make it a council review? So I came up and said that North Palm had a council level review and that I would work to incorporate that into our code, which is what we're doing now. Just a little bit of a clarification on the process. So a reasonable accommodation is a change or adjustment that allows a person with a disability to have equal access to housing, employment, public services, or education without causing undue hardship or fundamentally altering the program or service. And so federal and state laws such as ADA, the Federal and State Fair Housing Acts, and Federal and State Civil Rights Acts basically say that you can't discriminate on handicapped people. People that have addictions are considered to be handicapped, and therefore you can't discriminate on them when it comes to housing. And so essentially, if someone comes in and asks for reasonable accommodation, the municipality is supposed to look at it and give them special exceptions to enable it to happen. So the new state law says that each ordinance has to be consistent with state and federal fair housing laws, establish a written process, establish timeframes that it has to be approved, and application requirements. Our ordinance requires that the application meets all those state requirements. One thing that we added in that's in the North Palm Beach Code is to note that the applicant on this reasonable accommodation would have to demonstrate that the proposed use is a sufficient distance from other reasonable accommodation requests so as not to create a de facto social services district. And that's, it's a legally, it's a little bit of a gray area as far as how you would enforce that, but it would give the village a little bit of teeth if we felt that we were kind of getting overrun with reasonable accommodation requests and recovery residences. The council could at some point opt to make a stand and say, we think this is creating a social services district. We also are requiring that the applicant will provide a floor plan that demonstrates that a proposed use would meet the village's minimum housing standards. So that would ensure that if someone was coming in to do a certified recovery residence, they wouldn't be able to just come in, buy a three bedroom house, carve it up and turn it into a 12-bedroom house and just pack people in there. So they would have to demonstrate that during the reasonable accommodation process. The state law requires that village council review and approve it within 60 days of submittal. However, if village staff ask for additional time, like if we think it's not a sufficient application, we can go back to them and ask for more information. That would reset that clock. And also the ordinance allows for an appeal of a decision to the special magistrate. So rather than going directly to circuit court, if we were to deny somebody or if we were to actually approve somebody, someone would be able to appeal that decision to our special magistrate before that really bubbling up to a lawsuit. And it also, I think this is important, it allows the village staff to revoke a reasonable accommodation if someone's in violation. So if the certified recovery residence lost its accreditation or its certification, or if the police department was aware of issues that were happening in there and we, kind of deemed it to not really be operating properly, we have the ability to revoke that. And that is it for the first one. Any questions? Councilwoman Brandon, you weren't here, but the first presentation I gave are 3 ordinances that are coming to council next week. And then the next one I'm going to give is going to come at a future date. We split them up because there were so many updates.
No worries. I have a legal question.
Well, let me ask Jay real quick. Do you want us to give you comments on these ordinances now and then do the half of your presentation?
Yeah, that'd be great.
That way we don't lose our train of thought on any of the ordinances.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Regarding the recovery residences, that's very echoey today, isn't it? Is there anything regarding them being close to churches, schools, parks?
Great question.
As written in this current ordinance, no, and state law generally, no, the ADA would apply equally regardless of where the particular recovery residence was planned to locate.
Okay. I have 2 points to that question. One, because churches are known to host certain recovery groups, maybe they at some point purchase properties, but the fact that you actually brought up not creating territories, thank you for that. That's one of the things I was thinking. Secondly, and it might tie into how you were talking about if police start having consistent reports of issues at a property, that might tie into my next part of that question of when it becomes a safety concern. If a property is close to a church or a school, and I've seen it in other areas, what is our legal backing for addressing that? Because if that happens and we have children walking, parents coming and going, the safety of churchgoers on Sundays and Wednesday nights, and youth groups hanging outside shooting hoops, that's where my level of concern comes, is what is our process then going to look like? Will we wait for it to be an issue property, like from police reports, or do we put something in there now?
So we have, there's some stuff in there that says as long as, they'd have to maintain their certified recovery residence with the state, right? So it's a registration. So if they lose that registration, we can automatically revoke it. Then if, let's say that they're a bad actor, right now we have something in the code that says we can do inspections annually.
Okay.
And one thing that is in the staff report for next week's meeting is the PZB members brought up that they would like us to see if if there's an opportunity to allow more than an annual inspection. Dylan and I still need to put our heads together a little bit more on that one because that's a little bit of a gray area, but that would give us the opportunity to find out if they were bad actors. I suppose one thing that council could do, and we can talk about this offline too, is if you get a certain number of complaints, that maybe that could be kind of a criteria for revoking it. I know we had in North Palm we had a nuisance code that said if something had like 3 calls within 90 days, it starts becoming a nuisance property. So we could look into that.
Gotcha. And I'm also, just for the record, I'm not picking on like recovery residences.
Sure.
We discussed something similar with Airbnbs just because of the transient residency kind of coming and going and not really having a good feel. Because again, Tequesta is a small town. We're more like roots for people's homes than a touristy. So that's kind of where my thought process is. It's just, what is our protection for our residents who are here year round for decades? And again, for the children and people outside, and I just don't want to lose that. So I just make sure we have our end covered for how to protect our residents if something became a problem.
I will say we are fortunate that we don't really have anything that would even be like a lower middle class neighborhood, right? Like, so it's kind of cost prohibitive for people in the recovery residence business to even come to Tequesta. There's so many other opportunities in Palm Beach County and probably even Martin County too. So I don't think, knock on wood, we would ever really be on the radar for it. It never hurts to be extra cautious with these things, but knock on wood, think that we're probably not ever going to be on anyone's radar. And also, if we have a process that requires reasonable accommodation to go to council rather than administrative approval, that's another hoop they'd have to jump through that would deter them from coming here.
Okay. Again, I just, my biggest overall is just safety for the surrounding areas. That's it for that one.
So that nuisance, kind of a nuisance provision, is that something that you can look into, that we could, if we could add that?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally understand the issue of, maybe the call for service, if there's too much going on at the site, if there's recurring issues, the need to maybe be able to take some action. There's only so much you can do with, while still complying with the ADA and FHA, but we'll absolutely take a look at, maybe adding in some nuisance language into what's being presented here, for sure.
Does the majority of council want that to be added?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, look into that one.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other comments on what Jay just went over?
Support as many inspections as legally allowed, however that works out at the end with you guys. Support recovery residences, but I don't think our neighborhood and our resources could handle a bad actor. And then I kind of lost where we were on all the code changes. We didn't talk about the single family definition yet, or artificial turf.
That's my next presentation.
Gotcha.
Split them up.
That's all I had. Special exception not going to P and Z first. Why is that?
So that's historically how the village code was set up. It's not like that in most places. So trying to kind of bring us in line with everybody else.
Okay, understood. Thank you. No more questions.
Councilmember Painter?
I'm good.
On the recovery residents, again, I think we all are aligned. Like, it's nothing against recovery residences, because they are very important. But it is like protecting the village from the bad actors. So I think it's great that if we can have it come to council, but I'm not clear on the criteria that council will be reviewing it against. We have a variance, a special exception, site plan modification or application. We have very set numbered criteria that we review it against because I'm assuming this would be quasi-judicial in nature as well. What is that criteria? I mean, is it a rubber stamp? I'm just kind of trying to see how this is going to come across a dais and how we could approve or deny.
So there's not a ton of criteria that you can apply to it because of all the ADA and the Fair Housing Act laws, and the things that we put in there, like the not creating a de facto social services district and complying with minimum housing standards. That's more than most people would have, but I think it's still good to have these come to council just so that you have you're having an eye on it. You're getting to know the certified recovery residents, right? So the operator would have to come to council before you, and kind of on the record say we're gonna be operating things properly, so that if they aren't doing that, it's much easier for us to kind of enforce any issues against them. But to your point, we're open to any legally defensible criteria you can think of, but because of the protections, there's really not too much you can do. It is somewhat of a rubber stamp, the same way that like plats used to be, a rubber stamp.
Yeah, I guess if there could be any kind of criteria, because I guess we all understand that now and what you're saying and maybe what our obligations are there, but when we're all gone, I guess we rely on staff and the attorney to make sure future council members know, you just can't be denying it because you don't want it. I mean, you can. I'm not saying you can't, but you could, expose us to litigation. So if there's some kind of criteria that could be clarified in that, I think it would be helpful for future council members.
So, if I could, under the FHA, straight from the case law, something is not a reasonable accommodation if it imposes an undue financial or administrative burden upon the local government, if it would fundamentally alter the nature of a zoning regulation, or if it is not linked to the disability or is not necessary for the equal use and enjoyment of the property. There's a lot of different case law going into whether something fundamentally alters the nature of a zoning regulation, and just because something there is case law that just because it's typically a residential area, it does not rise to an alteration to allow a recovery residence there. So it's a very, and you're right in that you have to apply these, and it could be challenged. So it would be incumbent upon the council to sort of give advice as to whether they thought, you are complying, or at least giving a recommendation based on the application received, I would think.
Yeah, so I don't know if what you just said is outlined in the ordinance or not,
Perhaps
but
we could add that.
I would just
I like
add
adding
some
that to
stuff
the
like that, so it's clear
What was that?
on what our
part to add?
capabilities are.
What, I mean, I heard what you said, but or that you're saying add that whole.
The criteria that we
Okay.
would have to justify it against, just
Okay.
like we do with our variance and special
Yeah.
exceptions and
I think
site
it's a good
plan.
idea.
Because I think anytime, especially in a quasi judicial matter, when we leave it too subjective, I think it can get a little off the rails sometimes.
I agree.
When we're reviewing it.
Is that a change they could make to the ordinance on the fly without having to go back to first reading again?
Yeah.
Okay.
We could add that in.
So we'll have that in the presentation next week, so that you can just make it part of your motion if you choose to.
Oh, that's right, because the agenda stuff was due today, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and I'm kind of moving backwards now through my comments on what you presented. We've talked about this. I support the special exception going to P&Z first. I always thought it was weird that it didn't.
Yep.
And I know we've talked about this with the variances. So council doesn't see all variances. Is it just residential?
Single-family residential go to PZB only, and then multifamily and commercial come straight to council without going to PZB.
Okay, and what was the reasoning for that? And is that typical throughout, like, Palm Beach County municipalities?
I'd have to look into that. I don't think that's the norm. I think a lot of times they go straight to council without a PZB vote, but I'd have to do some research on that one.
I'd be open to Jay looking into that, because I've always thought it's weird that not all variances come to us. But I don't want to, make the process more burdensome for the applicants if it's just a residential. But I would be interested in what other people do, other cities do.
Be good to know.
Yeah.
Dylan, do you have any examples from other places?
We can take a look, but a lot of them are very formulaic and just follow basically the process laid out in case law. I can take a look and see if we can come up with some suggestions.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think most cities, they only go to council, they don't go to PZB at all.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'll revisit that.
I mean, I like having P&Z board, recommendations. And I mean, I guess if it came to council, like if we had all variances come to council, how much more time would that add? Like 2 weeks? What's the time in between their meeting and ours? Is it 2 or 3 weeks? They're in the middle of the month, right?
Well, I think a lot of them don't even have a recommendation from PZB. I think a lot of them just come straight to council.
Variances?
Yeah, and that's how they are right now, right? So if a variance comes to council in multifamily and commercial, it does not go to PZB for a recommendation. It just goes straight to council.
Oh, but then they review the residential ones.
They review the residential ones only.
That doesn't come to us. That's weird.
So the timing would be the exact same.
Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
And also, we don't get a lot of single-family residential variances. I think we've had 2 in the 2.5 years I've been here. There's not a lot. We generally deter people because they don't meet the legal standard for them. We tell them you're not likely to succeed here, and generally people don't go forward.
So if there's not a lot, then it's not that big of a deal to add in P&Z to review it.
No, they be coming to us. They don't come to us right now. The residential ones.
Oh,
So there's some variances that just
I still stick with
P&Z.
there's not a lot anyway, so.
Just leave it how it is.
I'm fine leaving it how it is. For a single family.
Okay, Councilmember
It- it-
Painter.
it- If I can interject,
Mm-hmm.
it does make it easier on council this way because sometimes zoning variances in single-family neighborhoods can sometimes become like a neighbor dispute, and so then if you take council out of it, it becomes less political, and it makes it so that the PZB is just making a purely legal judgment on it and not having to put you guys in that tough position. So bear in mind that it probably works well as written.
Yeah, well, we'll still hear it anyways, because I have for several different issues with variances at home, so we'll still hear about it regardless.
Yeah.
But no, I'm okay leaving it if the majority is. Like I said, I just wanted to bring it up because I didn't.
It was a good point.
Hear
Yeah,
that we didn't get all the variances.
Yeah, debate, but no, I think leave it.
Leave it how it is.
Yeah.
It's usually
Okay with
the
that.
size of the jurisdiction. So a lot of the smaller jurisdictions I see, they go mostly PZB and council, and then the larger it gets, usually more authorities given solely to the PZB board.
I would agree with that, yeah. Okay, this might be more of a question for Wayne, but on the temporary construction fence, I think like you said, it's not really codified, so maybe this will help, but you know, you see projects that remove their fence well before there's some obligations in here that need to be in place before the fence can be removed, and that's currently not happening, so is this gonna allow him to enforce that? Because it's becoming an erosion and dust control issue, and I mean that was even some of the comments in our citizen survey, which we're reviewing later tonight. So is that what's happening? It's not technically codified, so he can't, if they take the fence down, he can't really enforce it?
Yeah, it gives them more teeth for code enforcement to actually cite somebody and take them to special magistrate if they're not complying. Right now, it's kind of like he's using, you know, kind of the good faith to get people to comply.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, this
I mean,
gives
I
it a little
don't
more
like
teeth.
hearing people have to go to a special magistrate. That's the worst case, right? But that he'll be able to have something to enforce it. Because, yeah, I mean, I've been walking and I get like a face full of sand because, you know, there's a gust of wind and the fence is gone now and it's just sand everywhere. It's not even rock, right?
Yeah.
So, so hopefully that will alleviate that, and you guys can relay this message to Wayne. And then on the green building incentive. On the sentence says certification must be obtained within 12 months of CO to obtain the full value of the incentive. Why does it say the full value? Is it, I mean, there's the percentages, but could they get less than that?
No, that's just how it was written. So if you don't qualify, you get none of the percentage that you qualify for.
So maybe
It's all or
just
nothing.
strike the full value of and just to obtain the incentive. I mean, that's nitpicky, I
Makes
know,
sense.
but it made me think like, oh, could they get like part of the, you know, feedback, but not the full percentage okay. And then I'm only familiar with LEED, and I know USGBC is always making LEED, the requirements more cutting edge because the, you know, construction industry catches up to that standard, and so LEED and USGBC are always upping
Yep.
that. I don't know about those other organizations, so are they doing the same thing, or has the industry caught up with them and they're not really as relevant?
So they're actually, it's the opposite. So LEED and the U.S. Green Building Council actually started off as the gold standard and set the tone for everything and started the whole kind of movement. But it's very cost prohibitive to actually do it. I believe there's only like 2 or 3 LEED certified houses like in all of like North County. It's just very cost prohibitive. The process to go through is tedious, and so these new ones have come in and they still have very good standards, but the qualification process is smoother and more streamlined, and it doesn't cost as much money because U.S. Green Building Council is such a behemoth that they charge, you know, through
It's
the
a lot.
roof.
I've done
And
a lot of
it's really
commercial
it's
projects.
very prestigious to qualify for that, right? But you're making people pay a ton of money for that level of prestige. And so these new ones are coming in to kind of try and create an easier path, but while still having a lot of really good criteria that you have to meet to be qualified.
Okay, so they're always upping the ante too as the industry catches
Absolutely.
up to the standard. Okay.
And the Energy Star one is, the standards are a little bit lower. It's not the same as like when you have like an Energy Star certified appliance. You have to actually have a lot of things in your house to become Energy Star compliant. but the bar on that one is lower than all the other three, so that's why we made the percentage you get back, I think it was 2.5% of the permit fee. So that one's the smallest you can get.
Okay, great, I'm good with that. All right, any other comments or questions for Jay before he moves on?
I just have one other question. Going back to the recovery homes, and this is more of a hypothetical, but because one of the criteria that we can look at is the floor plan to make sure they're not chopping it up. And
Yep.
so if somebody, and I guess this question completely revolves around how code compliance could get resolve an issue like this that comes up. But if they came in with a floor plan that was fine, and later on it's, whether they're accusations or truth
Yep.
from neighbors stating that, hey, what they presented is not in fact what's happening here. What rights, given that ADA is kind of the overarching issue here, or the governing body, what rights would code compliance have to even enter to inspect what the layout of the home is and how many people are in it and all that?
So as written, it's just like an annual inspection, just like we have with like a vacation rental. And that's what the PCB wanted council to consider, and Dylan to further consider is a path for more proactive. But then it's also a slippery slope, right? Like every time someone calls on a recovery residence because they don't like it, do we have to do an inspection? So it's a slippery slope that I'll let Dylan answer.
The answer is it's tough.
Yeah.
It's like it's almost like any police action.
Yeah.
Someone calls and says, I think Councilmember Painter has something going on in his house. I can't just show up to your house and say, Councilmember, someone called, I need you to let me in and show me your house. And we wouldn't be able to do that. There is a process actually through the court system where you can actually apply for a code enforcement warrant if there's sufficient evidence that a violation has occurred, and it's very seldom used, but a judge can actually issue a code enforcement warrant that a code officer could then take to a structure and require entry for an inspection. But that's kind of why we, at the very least, have a annual inspection, just to make sure that, like you said, it has been chopped up. It's still complying with Florida building code and relevant building provisions. At least you get to take a look at it yearly, and that usually coincides with the BTR inspection.
And so, I guess the Councilmember French's point is the more inspections, the better, or however you put it. Would we be putting ourselves at risk? I mean, is it even an option to shorten that annual to something shorter than that? Or is that because it doesn't comply with other code?
It's something we can definitely look into, but it's difficult for the reason.
And maybe not a shall, but a may kind of thing, that's the common thing that you hear that happens, right? I mean,
We could try biannual inspections.
Yeah.
Or maybe you say, there's an annual inspection and the village may do a biannual inspection if necessary.
Yeah. Not that I hear a lot about this, but when I do hear about it, that's typically it. You were told there'd be 4 people in the home and there ends up being 15, and you're kind of stuck for that year. Or the neighbors mostly are stuck with that for that remainder of the year or even longer. So, okay. That's all I got.
So with that, potentially adding a nuisance provision and then adding review criteria, do we really think this is ready for first reading next week? I mean, can those modifications all be made at first reading and still have the second reading?
Yeah, I think they can.
Okay.
It's, of course, at the pleasure of the council. If you want to discuss this more, I think it needs a little bit more time to be worked on. I'm happy to bring it to
Well, because you're not, the agenda hasn't been published, but has the ordinance notices gone out already?
They don't go until second reading, but the problem is I don't think we can we change the ordinance between PZB and council without?
If you're not fundamentally, it's still a ordinance regulating certified recovery residences and accommodations. As long as you're not completely off topic, you can make minor changes to it. You can't change the ordinance title if it's already been advertised, or else you'd have to re-advertise it.
Dylan and I could probably do some changes tomorrow
Yeah.
before the agenda even gets published. We got what, till Wednesday or Thursday? Got a couple days.
Okay.
I like to get it by Wednesday at the latest, but I'll let you guys slide a day this time.
But if not, we can always have everything listed in the presentation next week, so the council can make that part of your motion, and then just bring those changes back on second.
That's
reading.
what I was thinking. Like at a minimum, like just have it to present as part of the presentation,
Yeah, that's the easiest path for us. It gives us a little more time to work on things.
and then and then hopefully it's fine to just edit it for second reading. But I mean, if not, if we have a second first reading, it's really not that big of a deal. Okay. All right. Anything else?
No, thank you.
All right. You can continue.
All right, round two, and feel free to interrupt, like jump in if there is something on each individual item that you want to talk about. So additional, well, I broke these out into the type of update. So the first round is building department updates. One of them is waterway control. Wayne said there had been some issues sometimes with what the definition of a boat lift is. They've had people, I think, pushing the limits on interpretations of a boat lift and boat lift setbacks. So this is just kind of taking a standardized boat lift definition, and it'll help him enforce things. The next one is cleaning up a glitch in the location of accessory buildings in section 78289. So the way the code is currently written, accessory structures in our single-family neighborhoods can potentially be located forward of the front face of the building structure if it meets building setbacks. The way the code's written, it's a little bit ambiguous, and that could open the door for someone putting a pool or accessory structure in front of the front setback. We've had somebody push back about this interpretation, and so we just wanted to clarify so this never is even up for debate. And what we did is clarified that accessory structures must be located behind the front face of the building, regardless of where the actual setback is. And that's consistent with our fence code. Our fence code has that language in it, but the building or the accessory structure didn't. So this will just preserve the front yard character of our single family neighborhoods. I think you guys might have seen there's a pool in the front yard on the riverside, which has drawn some eyes. So this will ensure that things like that don't happen. This is another EAC update. They had the green building one. They also have this one, which I believe I spoke to you all about last year, which is when it comes to our invasive or prohibited species list, just deferring to the Florida Invasive Species Council's list of prohibited plant species. They update this every other year. They are the gold standard for invasive species and prohibited species in the state. And we workshop this quite a bit with the EAC. We also use Steve Parker, and I think we've got a good process. And this way, we're also not having to update our code every 5 years to figure out what's the latest prohibited species or invasive species that we want to keep out. We'll just always defer to that list, and a few other cities also do the same thing. So, as you all know, state legislation, the past few years, there's been a lot of things that have required us to make updates. I'm sure I'll be back in front of you next year with even more, based on what's happening right now. I think you guys have heard about this one. House Bill 683 last year required the DEP to establish minimum standards for installation of artificial turf in single-family properties that are under 1 acre. The DEP has adopted these standards in Rule 62-308-100. It has not been officially adopted yet, but it has been vetted and through the DEP's adoption process for a few months now. I believe it's going to become officially law in March. But we have already taken everything in that rule and incorporated that into the artificial turf regulations you created a few years ago. And so we've retained a lot of the standards that are in there, but we've simply exempted properties that are under 1 acre, basically the ones that the state preempts us on. Interestingly, I will say the DEP created a few decent new standards in there that were not, required. So they have a thing where artificial turf can't be within 10 feet of water bodies. So we've incorporated that into the code. and that way at least someone's not having artificial turf that's just flowing right into our waterways. So they did a few small little things like that, but we will be bringing this to you with the next round. Also, plats. In 2025, the state required that plats be approved administratively. We legally have to do that right now, even though it's not codified. We have, I think, approved one small lot combination that would have normally gone through the plat process to village council, but we legally had to administratively approve it. This does not impact site plans or PUDs, it's just platting, right? Typically someone will get approval for a site plan or a planning and development, and then after that's approved, they then come back for the plat. So generally, plats are supposed to be more of an administrative and ministerial type of review. Really where the village is supposed to look at things is during the site plan process. So it shouldn't alter too much from our normal operations. It's maybe one of the state laws that's tolerable. There's a few community development updates that I've done. Some of them you may have heard of in past workshops or things that have been kind of kicked around. Some of them are just cleaning up glitches. One of them is creating a waiver process in our PRD code. We currently have a waiver process in our planned commercial district code, but we do not have one in the PRD code. The village has historically allowed there to be deviations from code standards in PRDs. So in the reserve, there were deviations from code requirements. They weren't called waivers. They just kind of happened as part of the PRD process. But what a lot of cities do is they highlight every deviation from the code as a waiver, so that if for instance, if the reserve came back to you and you were looking at it, it would say waiver 1, waiver 2, waiver 3, waiver 4, and waiver 5, and the council would be able to look at those waivers and determine if they're, worth granting. And what we did, and what's also in the PCD code, is create a criteria for waivers. So what that waiver section says is that waivers, the majority they have to meet the majority of the following criteria, which is consistency with the comp plan, that they have to lead to innovative design where other design standards are exceeded, they have to demonstrate public benefit, they have to have sufficient screening and buffering, they have to not be based solely on economic reasons, be compatible with adjacent uses, result in preservation of natural resources, and not be detrimental to public health, safety, and welfare. So I know the idea of creating waivers is sometimes a dirty word, but we already have them. This will actually give council a little bit more teeth and a little bit more of a criteria to apply when you're looking at a waiver. So you can look at those waiver requests and determine, is there enough public benefit here to grant this, or does it lead to a better design alternative? So I think it's a good provision to put in there. There's a couple of definitions that have been changed. One of them is to define what an accessory dwelling unit is. It's not currently defined. And also explicitly note that they are prohibited. However, the state may preempt us on that. There's currently legislation saying that municipalities have to adopt ADUs by right, but we're at least trying to codify this as a good faith effort. We're also changing the definition of family. This is something I did mention to you when I workshopped some code updates last year. We do not really define or create a cap on what's considered family. So what the council decided when we workshopped this was to make it no more than 3 unrelated persons can occupy a single family home. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but it's generally 2 or 3 or 4 that other cities do. So I think council landed on 3, and this will prevent houses from turning into rooming houses and things of that nature. Or also, one thing that's come up is that our definition of fast food restaurant and carry-out restaurant are basically the exact same thing. So we wanted to add and note that a fast food restaurant either has a drive-through lane or a walk-up lane, like that Chipotle proposal. Because it's relevant, because carry-out restaurants are permitted by right, but fast food restaurants require special exception. So I think the intent of that is to only require there to be a special exception when there's a drive-through lane or a walk-up lane, because as the code is defined right now, things that are carry-out restaurants like Three Natives might be considered a fast food restaurant the way our code's defined. So it'll clear things up to make it so that true fast food restaurants require a special exception. And as previously noted, we are noting in the definition of waivers that they are allowed in PRDs, just like they are in PCDs and zoning overlays. There's a kind of a glitch in the C3 zoning code. It says that automotive repair establishments are permitted uses and special exception uses in the C3 district. So because of that, I'm proposing to remove automotive repair establishments from the list of permitted uses so that they would just default to special exception uses. And because those can cause noise and odors and issues, they're a better fit as a special exception. We're also proposing to create an outdoor seating section. We don't really have any outdoor seating standards in the code. There are a lot of ADA and fire issues sometimes when people do outdoor seating. So we took some of the best practices from the Palm Beach Gardens code. They have a lot of outdoor seating requests there and can kind of roll them into our code. And I think it'll help us to ensure that there's no ADA and fire issues, and that also outdoor seating is screened. I think I showed you guys a picture of the Greek restaurant where you can pull up and you can back your truck in and the exhaust could be blowing on people eating 2 feet away. So it requires screening and buffering, so you'd at least have to put a little bit of shrubs in between. This is one that I think has been mentioned a little bit, but I don't think we've ever done a deep dive on, so I anticipate some discussion on this one. And that is to give the village manager or designee, maybe myself, the opportunity to call to have a special workshop with a project when it's a little bit more complex than a normal project. So for instance, something like Paradise Park or 250 300 Beach Road, which is being talked about now, or the Rude property, when a complicated project like that's coming in, where it might be a little bit more of an in-depth discussion than a normal conceptual. I'm thinking something that would have 10 or 15 public comment come up, and that there'd be a long presentation and discussion. It would give us an opportunity to have it at a workshop meeting. The public would still be notified about it. We'd actually probably do more to notify the public about that special workshop than we would a normal council meeting. And then it also would not just completely dominate the regular council meeting, right? So I know I get flack sometimes from my other department heads when I have like 2 hours of items and they have to stay till 9 o'clock or, and so it would let us kind of hone in on focus on special projects. Chapter 11 is just cleaning up an inconsistency from another landscape code provision that wasn't changed previously, and to remove a diagram that was not changed when the code was last updated. So that's a true glitch update. Section 78701 has been amended to note that a photometric plan may be required during the site plan process. So a photometric plan is just a plan that shows how many foot candles or how much light is on a property, and it's often used in projects just to make sure that there isn't a lot of light flooding onto neighbors' properties. So most codes have this in as a requirement. We do typically get them from people, but it's not codified, so I think it's helpful to have just in case anyone pushed back and said they didn't need one. Also, in the village master plan, there was a recommendation that the village start adopting dark sky friendly lighting fixtures. This is somewhat of a movement in Palm Beach County and South Florida, just just because we're in such a big metro area that you don't even get to see stars sometimes, and especially when you're next to Jonathan Dickinson, if we can somewhat limit the light that's spilling over, you have a lot more of a dark sky friendly views there, or maybe even at the beach. But we wrote it to say that it's not mandated, but that we're encouraging it. So we would try to work with people to do dark sky lighting. It's basically you're shining your light down rather than letting it go up in the air. I think this is the last one, and this is just codifying something that's in the comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan says that in all non-residential projects requiring a minimum of 20 or more parking spaces, that bicycle rack should be provided. So now we'll have a code standard. We'll actually be able to require people to put bike racks in. We try, again, it's not codified, but we always try to get people to put bike racks in, but it's always helpful to just have it codified, and especially since it's already a comp plan provision. That's it.
Thank you, Jay. All right, council.
Can we go back to the beginning? And do you want to just go through each one?
Sure.
Because I kind of have like little comments on each one for the most part in general. Nothing great. Oh, is that the first one?
That's the first one.
I don't know if
I'm good with boat lift.
Oh, you said setbacks for the boat lift. I'm actually curious, what do you mean by that?
So there's,
With inside the pilings?
I don't know off the top of my head, it's the
Okay.
building department thing to enforce, but I think they have to be 20 feet from something. But I don't know the
Okay,
exact.
I was just curious because I've actually never heard that.
I think it's more necessary in canals and some of our,
Gotcha.
okay. Some of the tighter properties, not necessarily like in the Loxahatchee when it's in kind of
I
open water
would think
body.
that has to do with the depth too, because you can't get on the lift if there's not enough depth. Okay, that was it for that one.
That's the accessory structure issue.
My question for that is, you said something triggered this. What are you seeing that is an accessory structure that's coming up in our area?
Somebody has a huge lot and wanted to put a tennis court in the front yard.
Okay, so like another use.
Yeah.
So is this referencing some of the older properties have like light pillars out by the driveway? Because they've been there forever.
No.
So that's not.
This is preventing things like pools,
Okay, big items.
big things like that. Not smaller things. We have a thing called a minor structure. So those would not like a minor structure is just like little things like a light pole or something like that.
First, great job on all the updates you put in the summaries, and then just with that, you've answered a lot of my questions already. Thank you. When I think about this, when you said larger lots, it made a little more sense to me, and they're not just trying to fit a pool on a corner lot. What about guest houses, in the front, or security houses for some of the larger? Would that prevent that option? We don't have a ton of those, but we have I would say enough to fit one.
It would prevent one from being put in the front yard of the property.
Yeah.
But if somebody was designed, like if it was a tear down on a big lot, they would have to put that in the rear, which is kind of generally where they tend to be.
You mean like a gated drive?
You gated drive. Sometimes you have
Like a security, whether it's armed or
Sure.
someone in or not, yeah.
yeah.
Somebody could still we still have a gate provision that separates, that's in our fences and walls section, so somebody could still do like a gated structure.
But there's a house like on Riverside.
That has the package house.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever, yeah, maybe that's what it is. It looks.
That's what we're told.
Looks like a
It's where
garden.
packages go.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I'm
'Cause there's
trying
no
to-
It's on the
garden.
Jupiter
You'd have to
side,
look.
of course.
Okay.
Yeah. Kind of near the pool in the front yard.
On the Jupiter side.
But that's what I was
On the
thinking
Jupiter
too.
side.
That's what I was thinking too when you were talking about accessory structures. When I hear structure, I think something that's definitely bigger than a light post. But those are popping up with some redevelopments. Not on our end yet, but that's
The
why I was
gates-
asking what triggered it.
The gates, some of those are variances though. Those are variances that have gone through P&Z.
Some do require a variance.
Country Club doesn't. Aren't you allowed to have a fence in front of the house in Country Club Drive? Like
Yes, there's an exemption on
And-
Country Club
yeah.
Drive from the fence in the front yard.
but I think like Riverside, I feel like those are variances.
The fences, I know P&Z sees fences for
The
gated
gates.
driveways. I know they do.
I guess my next question would just be along with that is that if I purchased a home on the water, I'd probably want my home close to that for the view. And then if I wanted to put a tennis court or something else ultimately in the front of the house, I mean, I could see somebody wanting to do that. I would want to do that, opposed to blocking my view. And is there an ability or a variance if a person did you know, if it's a half-acre lot, okay,
Yeah.
no. But it's 2 acres on the water, you know, I would like to do that also.
Yeah, they would be able to apply for a variance, and I probably wouldn't be, and I don't think Wayne would be opposed to creating like an exemption on larger lots, because to your point, this is where this came up. Somebody has, I think it might be the biggest lot in the village, and there's an existing tennis court there, and they wanted to add a padel court and some other stuff next to it, and it's a huge lot. You don't even see these things, so it would make it wouldn't be the worst idea to create some relief for someone with a large lot.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of creating a mechanism for a special situation like that, not your average single-family home where you're forcing things onto.
I mean, there would be a variance. They would apply for a variance, right?
Yeah, but it's just so hard to get a variance. So it's easier to create some sort of exemption for them.
Like if it's a certain size.
Yeah, I can.
Great,
Since
then-
this hasn't been drafted yet, I can work with Wayne and Dylan and create something where maybe on lots larger than like 1.5 acres or something. I'll run the numbers on the type of lots that would be able to accommodate this.
But then also like what kind of structures though? Like you're just talking about like a tennis court or
Yeah,
something
tennis
like
court,
that. Or
security.
maybe we need to be like, you don't want to get
Like
too
ones
in the
that
weeds,
erect from the
but
ground, ones that don't. But then I'm also thinking, you're saying tennis court, that's a hard surface. I mean, does that tie into the landscaping code? of
yeah,
how
it
should
would
cover?
count towards your impervious percentage.
I see this as very layered. I'm not knocking it, but I don't see it as like a measurement of your lot is this much, you can do this, this, and this, because I can see already multiple things tying into that, like the landscaping code. Is it erect? Is it not? Is it 2 feet high? I know there's something, because I dug for my own kid, there was something about you can't go over 2 feet high.
And then depending on the use too, like if you have a padel court or pickleball and the noise, like we should define how far away it needs to be from a single family home if we're gonna allow them, well, in the back or front of the house. I mean, I was a little worried about what the noise is gonna be with the, country club ones, because there's houses nearby and that's becoming a big issue now. And I think there's some standards out there now, suggested standards with how far these should be from residents. So I don't know, you could go down a rabbit hole with that.
You could probably prevent pickleball because that is the one that is louder than the other
Versus
ones.
tennis, yeah. I don't know what a padel ball looks like. Is it?
I don't think it's as loud as the others, but
Yeah.
But
Anyone
there's
play
funny
padel?
reels because it's not 2 people and 2-sided. They got the 4. So it's multiple bounces and it's not as far of a bounce. So there's those funny reels where you're doubling the bouncing sound.
It's like a noise problem. I don't know. Maybe look into it. Think about what would be appropriate, what wouldn't, on what size lot. But like I said, you can go down a rabbit hole there.
yeah. We'll come back with some ideas and options when this comes to you for in an ordinance.
Okay.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, we're on this one. Okay, I have nothing else on this one.
Invasive species, prohibited species list.
I'm good on that one.
I think I was surprised. Like a banyan tree is an invasive species. Like those are banned now per our code.
Wow.
Well,
They're lovely.
they are. They have been.
Right, but I didn't realize that until I was reading this. I was like, wow.
Super old trees.
I don't hate on them. I mean, I'm from here. I grew up climbing them and swinging in them, and
And a ficus, like a
They're
ficus was
amazing.
on the list.
They're all
Like what?
amazing trees, but I think they grow out of control.
Yeah, you
Systems.
They
It's a lot
take
to
up
maintain.
the root systems are crazy. They take up a lot of water and they grow like crazy. But they're beautiful. I mean, it's what
Not
people.
big enough for banyan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a tennis court.
And a tennis court, but I want to play tennis in the back on the water.
Yeah, this is fair.
All right, everyone good with this
Artificial
one?
turf.
Oh, did you change it already?
You changed
What are we on
it.
now?
Oh.
Artificial turf. Okay.
Turf, I do have a few questions on turf. Let's see here. So on it's sections 13 and 14 of C, well, let's say section C, it talks about installation, repair, and maintenance. it almost was like an instruction manual on how to install turf. And to me, it seemed a little bit of a reach. So my first question would be, do we have that much detailed information on sod? Because this comes down to, let me read one of them on here. Artificial turf shall be maintained like new, no weathering, stains, weeds, free of dirt, debris, tears, holes, ruts, depressions. So, I mean, I get that, but I think that's a little bit of a reach in someone's backyard and we have no way to enforce it, check it, or anything of that nature. So I think for me, all of C is a little bit of a reach, but I don't know exactly where you got that from either.
Can you bear with me for
Sure.
a while?
What page are you on?
So it's page 54 of 120 in our agenda.
And what item number were you on?
So it's right. Agenda item 1, but it's 783965C. Yes, C.
C, okay. So all of C or just certain?
Well, I mean, some of it makes sense, but I just don't know after it's installed, how is any of this going to be enforced or checked on? And so I feel like it's a little bit of a reach to someone's backyard, but I'm open to the history and maybe, because I think when you install sod, there's not that much regulation, you know, and obviously turf has to flow right and things like that, but I don't know that sod has the same.
Well, yeah, and I think I'd probably be more opinionated about it if we allowed it in front yards, but since it's in backyards,
Sure.
I see
Well,
what
it
you're
is
saying.
now, that's why, like, this would apply to front yard too.
Yeah. So
I think from an aesthetic reason, like, I don't think you wanna see turf.
No.
So I didn't realize that. Okay.
That's what the state is doing.
A state
The
preemption.
is preempting
Okay.
us from doing anything regulation. These regulations are coming from the state. They've worked on this for over a year now, and so this is what they came up with.
Okay, well, in that case,
And yeah, we knew. I mean, I know we sent out several emails to council saying, "Yeah, you know, we got people with turf. We got we got notices out soon. You know, we won't be able to enforce that in the front yard."
Oh, I apologize. I didn't realize that.
And to your point, Councilman French, we do have a property maintenance code that would require sod to be maintained. So if somebody had a patchy yard that was just dirt, code enforcement could likely take them to the special magistrate for a code violation on that too.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I take that back. I'm glad we had the conversation.
And I know that is important that the state does not allow turf in the right of way because that's city-owned property, and so it has to be on your own private property. Which we've had that discussion a little bit too. I believe is that you're going to have, you may have somebody that has, sod in the right of way, and they're going to have artificial turf on the rest of their yard, and how's that going to look? And so we'll have to work through some of that.
There's some houses that have already done it with
Yeah.
the real sod.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, it doesn't look that bad. Now there's ones that have put other product in the right of way that's not supposed to be there.
Right.
So, but that's a code enforcement problem too, I guess.
was this the one that talked about, I mean, it's about the artificial turf, so about abutting up to a waterway? Is this the same? Okay.
The state actually put that in their guidelines.
So if there was like a backyard on the river and they had a seawall bulkhead, they can't go right up against the edge of that
The
bulkhead?
10-foot
Okay,
zone there. Yeah.
okay.
Gotta be to prevent like direct runoff or something,
Yeah,
right?
it
That's
is.
what I would have to assume.
So
And we have similar stuff in our code too, about like a 10-foot buffer, but it's challenging to enforce sometimes.
So one thing, I'm not saying I disagree with this. I just, I guess enforceability, particularly in the backyard. I do know a lot of people that have artificial turf do either modify their irrigation so that that you don't want irrigation heads like in the middle of your turf because it looks ugly. So they'll put it on the outside to cool off their turf during the summer months. This would eliminate that. That would no longer be permissible. I believe it's in-ground irrigation systems cannot be used to irrigate artificial turf areas. I'm in subsection 15 of C.
Yes, 15. Yeah, that is a state requirement.
And that's all new? Okay. No.
Basically, anything you see underlined is an addition from the state's new guidelines, and then there's a few things we had to take out because of them.
Okay.
Did you say people water their turf?
I have heard, we have turf around our backyard. We don't have irrigation on it, but like during summer, it gets so hot you can't even step on it. Like to me, it's like get out a hose, spray it off, or just don't.
I've heard of it from some of our neighbors because it helps
Still watering
rinse
artificial
like
turf?
dogs.
Of having artificial
Pretty much.
turf. Yeah. But
Wow.
That's what I've heard that our neighbors do it. They do it so it rinses it consistently if we aren't having rain. So that way, like
not.
dog urine,
I can see that.
dirt.
Yeah.
Trust me, that does not get rid of the urine smell. You
Uh-huh.
have to use products. Okay. I don't have any other questions.
I'm good at this one.
I'm
All
good.
right, next one.
It's fine.
Plats. Not much we can do here.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Waivers.
Good.
I like that you said they'd be detailed out for council.
Yeah, I like the objectivity, the objective standard here. Okay.
Definitions.
The family one, I remember talking about it. And 2 questions. Does this affect short-term rentals? So if you have 4-bedroom house, you have some couples that get together, they all rent the house. They're not all the same family. Does that integrate into that? Or is that separate?
This is that would be a separate preemption over this. This would just be for longer term rentals or ownership.
Okay, I was trying to find a way to
Yeah.
regulate that. And then why not 2 people? I know we talked about 3 and 4, but why not 2? If you have a 3-bedroom house, 3 unrelated people, you kind of just created that.
So kids are exempt from it.
The way I
I
see
think
it with 3, and again, we're not there yet, I don't think, in our area, but our college kids come back, it's really hard for them to get housing, whether the rents are too high or buying a home, and not everyone's gonna buy their kid a home. So I could see someone owning a home, and maybe it's one parent, and then 3 of the young 20-year-olds come and get together. They're 3 separate. I can see 4 being excessive, but I'm looking at maybe it's an opportunity to get some of our younger generation back and let them build some roots here.
Okay.
I mean, I definitely see where you go 4 or 5 could get a little hairy.
Sure.
I'm okay with 3. I think 2 is more challenging because it's really low.
Okay.
I'm hoping this works out like at 3. That's how I'm seeing it right now. 3 could allow some of our younger generation to figure out roommates
Sure.
and get their feet back here rather than just being kicked out. Like you don't have $1.2 million go away.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. And I'm asking, I don't know. I just why the 3? Okay.
And I think most of the houses around here are like 3-bedroom. There's only a handful. They're like 4.
Well, a lot of the new homes being built are much larger too.
I know. I mean, I couldn't imagine 20-year-olds renting a.
So I have a
Like
question.
6,000 square foot
staying
house.
with like someone's parent, right? And they
That's
have
true.
it's like empty nesters, and a couple college kids come home and live there for a little bit. Or
I have a question on that subsection C up there with fast food. So something that's recently come before us is the Bank of America Chipotle there. So that would, because I think they were coming in for special exception because it was fast food. This would now remove it from that category.
It would not be fast food if they eliminated the walk-up lane.
Chipotle,
and the drive-through.
Chipotle lane?
Yeah.
Okay. So
And
that
it would be-
Chipotle would still be considered it's a drive-through. Okay.
But if you eliminate that, then it's just a fast casual restaurant, just like the new guac place or
Yeah.
Dirty
I thought it was weird that and I guess it was probably code related, but that they kept calling that fast food, but okay. I gotcha.
That's it for me now.
No questions.
Outdoor seating.
Nothing for me.
And the way I read the code for the outdoor seating, it still allows for, some of our current establishments have like a couple tables out. So it looked like it's still allowed for a small percentage of tables to be on the sidewalk.
Yeah, you can do a de minimis one, like if it's just like 3 tables and it's not, you don't even have to meet this criteria. Again, I think Three Natives has a couple out there.
A lot of that has like DeQuesta Table Mood. They all have like a couple tables out front, so they
Yeah.
won't have to deal with all that. Or
No, and it's just when new people come in or a new restaurant comes in and tries to do new outdoor seating, it's just to make sure that they don't go over the top. Just because some people will come in and push the limits, they'll block things, and so that sidewalks aren't ADA compliant, and so it's good to have on the books.
Okay.
But we're not going to be going around citing existing restaurants.
Okay, thank you.
Conceptual. This is the workshop for complicated projects.
I
Realize it.
want to question this one a little bit. So I'm trying to understand what this accomplishes that our current process doesn't. Because we do have our conceptual review process, which is pretty unique. I don't think anyone in the area has that. So it's already one extra meeting and step we allow for council feedback and public feedback. And then, you know, as here, and which is very common throughout Palm Beach County, you know, the developers request one-on-one meetings with council. They can get feedback then. I know you guys have encouraged with the larger projects for them to have, you know, community meetings, again, which is another appropriate way for them to get feedback. So I guess I'm just trying to understand what this is going to accomplish that we already can't. I think there's a balance between working with developers versus really catering to their interests over our own constituents. And I want to make sure we're not crossing that line. There was in the waiver section, I really like the quote that said, the request is not based solely or predominantly on economic reasons, and there are special circumstances and conditions that warrant the waiver. Like, should that requirement be here? Because I know a lot of the projects that are coming to us now, they're coming to us because they're having issues with their performance penciling out. I mean, it's really well known in the commercial real estate industry right now that like no one's performance are penciling out. It's very tough right now. It's a tough market. So it's like, are we meeting with them because it's more of an economic reason and they're trying to get something from us so their project can pencil out versus it's, you know, something that is really aligns with our vision and our interests, and we're really, you know, meeting and having this additional conversation for our constituents' behalf versus the developers because of economic reasons. So I just want to throw that out there. You know, I want, if we do open this can of worms, I want to be really careful and make sure it's not for like developer special interests because they can't get their project to pencil out.
I think that's a great point, but I would argue that this actually will lead to better citizen input. I think the general public is less likely to come to a general council meeting when they know that they're going to have to sit through everything else. They know there's probably going to be a bigger crowd there. It's going to be more formal. And so, you know, a lot of people, the biggest fear is public speaking, right? So you're more likely to get people, I think, to come and talk in a more relaxed environment. And like I said before, I think you're not going to completely overwhelm a meeting. I've seen and felt it before where, you know, you're looking at the agenda and you're like, man, we've got a lot of business to get to tonight. Let's hurry this thing up. But it may be a really important project. Like we said, this would only be for extremely important projects. So this way the council, staff wouldn't feel rushed to hurry up a discussion so that they could get to, you know, all the remaining items on an agenda. You could really do a deep dive on a complicated project. And these are things that would happen once a year, once every 2 or 3 years. These are, you know, these like big picture projects.
I also like that I'm sure a developer could request one of these meetings, but ultimately it's Jeremy or perhaps you that has the authority to say this is going to happen or not, right?
Yeah.
Am I okay? Yeah, and I think there's also, like, depending on the developer, I could see what you're saying. It could, you know, they could, I don't know if take advantage is the right way to put it, but for some developers, it could be another hoop that they have to jump through and thus discourage them from even looking here. You know, so some developers love our conceptual, some hate it, you know. So I think I would not be in favor of it if a developer had a right to, request is the right word, but they could make the judgment call as to whether this could happen. You know, this is strictly within our village manager or Jay to make this determination.
Well, because too, I mean, if you're calling a special meeting just for one development, I mean, unless you live under a rock right now, you see how it's going in other northern municipalities and Martin County. So you're going to be put thinking in the developer's favor, like, you know, you could really stir the pot, and, you know, are you really making progress when you have, you know, maybe a bunch of people coming out and speaking against the project, which is stuff we would want to hear, but like I said, I mean, it could go both ways, and I don't know what we're really achieving that we can't already do with the individual developer meetings if they request it with conceptual plan, and then, you know, finalize it through a site plan or whatever. I mean, maybe we move the conceptual plans to workshop meetings instead of council meetings. I mean, that could be another option.
So our intention was to have these at regular workshops, not at special called workshops.
Oh, you made it sound, well, it says special workshop, literally in the language right there, but
That's
you also
okay.
said it, and like you would notify the special workshop meeting.
But I think like tonight, if there had been one, you know, we're not broadcasting like, hey, Jay's got code updates. No one cares about that. But if there was a special project, you know, we could put it in social media and the newsletter in advance for it.
Here's my 2
Our
cents.
developers like that. I mean, I'm all about transparency. I think usually if there is development on our agendas, like people are paying attention, and we do hear from them. We get emails, we get phone calls, they come to the meeting. But I know that Wayne and you push for them to have community meetings. Like, why can't that just happen and they can get the feedback? Because what feedback are they not going to get from council via meeting with them individually, having a conceptual plan, and also, you know, a formal vote on whatever application that they put through? Like, I don't think they're going to get additional or different feedback from us. The public, maybe, like you said, if it garners more interest. So why not just have them hold a community meeting that doesn't run through us, and the developer can get that feedback, choose whether they want to, you know, apply innovate or not, and then bring it back to us.
I like that suggestion. I've worked in a place where we had mandatory public meetings for certain project types. So anytime you did a PUD, you'd have to have a public meeting, and we would actually be in charge of putting it on for them. So that it was usually held at a church or at like the rec center or something like that. So that could be a good suggestion, that we make all PUDs, because I think that's what we put in there. So anytime someone was doing a complicated project or a PUD or PCD, they would have to have a special public meeting with residents and work with village staff to set it up and to publicize it.
I would prefer that, because then you guys would bring that feedback back to us as well from the meeting, right?
We could also even have a notification on it too. I believe that process had it where you had like a 300-foot notification, the same way we do, you know, if you're doing a zoning variance or a special exception. If you live or own property within 300 feet, they would have to notify you that this special meeting was happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a better route to take, and it's really put on them for additional feedback, because they're going to get enough feedback from us through the process that we already have. And then also, you don't have, you know, the attorney sitting up here, the manager, the clerk, the police. Like, you relieve some people from having to sit through yet like another meeting too.
And I hear your concerns. I think they're valid. I don't mind especially now that I know it's not a special workshop, right? And I thought the same. It was a special workshop. But if one of you two think that need is there, I don't have an issue with you enacting that, especially something like Paradise Park. You know, I don't think you're going to be using it all the time. So with the additions, I think they're good ideas also, and they're good tools that you can have for these projects. But if you believe you need that just in case, it gives you that nice option for the future development that we do have. I'm still in support of it. And the community meetings are great. I think the last one, County Line, though, was a bloodbath. And I don't, I don't know how productive that was, and it was more casual. So I think it has a lot of potential, but that current structure was not it.
I guess I'm still missing the intent though. Sorry, you go ahead.
No, I understand your concern about the intent. I sit very strongly with, I still think it should stay and start at a general public meeting. And I say that because that term up there, unusually complex, Paradise Park in particularly, for the most part, most people will understand that's a very sensitive, complex project. However, there is a former council member that didn't think that. They thought it was just boop, boop, check, 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 go ahead. So for anyone sitting up here, in regards to the people getting the chance to get some time to review it, I would like to have it come forward at a general meeting first. If it gets triggered as going on and on and on, and a lot of logistics being brought up, a lot of legal issues being brought up, a lot of public feedback, or people even expressing during public comment, hey, like we just looked at it, are you guys voting on this tonight? If it goes down that road, council can obviously go, can we move this to a workshop, just like we do with others? If a developer, in my opinion, doesn't want to continue the conversation, that's a red flag for me. Because they're just basically saying we don't care what the people are concerned about, and we don't want to sit and workshop and partner a conversation about going through all the concerns and feedback you guys have. So I would rather see it stay on a public meeting. If it gets triggered, like it's going down a rabbit hole, to wrap it up, put it on a workshop, and go from there. I like council being at workshops, hearing, because, and it's not anything on you and staff, but in the past, we don't get very detailed minutes. I don't hear every single thing that a community member said if it's in a community meeting. I would have to vote on that. So I need every little thing that someone says for me to make a very, very educated legal decision and vote. So again, I'm gonna sit strongly with start at a regular meeting. If it triggers a lot of complex feedback, we move it to a workshop and go from there.
I can get on board with that. Like, go through our normal process that we already have. Conceptual at the council meeting, and then if we deem it necessary, move forward with like another workshop. I like that because like I feel like this way you're just opening up out the gate for that special workshop when we haven't even gone through the conceptual. Because granted, I guess you wouldn't deem them complex projects, but we've had 2 very successful conceptual presentation conversations. So again, like it's not like the process isn't broken. I think it's working very well.
I agree.
So I could get on board with that. Like, go through our standard process, then council can deem punting it to a workshop. But I still wouldn't want a special workshop. I want it to be like our standard workshop meeting, like just having
I'm
an
fine with
agenda
that.
item.
Can we not do that already? Punt it to a workshop? Because
I think we could. I mean, why?
We could clarify in the code. I like the suggestion. I think we could easily just tweak that in the conceptual code. Just say the council may elect to have a continued discussion of the conceptual presentation at a future regularly scheduled council workshop meeting.
Didn't we do that for Paradise Park when we were going through the overlays?
No, we talked about it, but we didn't because it was about density and height, and we didn't want to. That was the hard
yeah,
stop,
that's right.
so we didn't bother with that.
I'm good with it. We're good with it. I think
Okay.
we just wanted to have an opportunity to have a more thorough and in-depth
And I
dive
agree
on
with
the
that.
project.
Well, looking
Because
at
sometimes
some
we
of the
need
survey
to.
results from residents, like they, and I don't blame them, want a more transparent and more communication, particularly around development. So I don't see this coming up all that often.
Right.
And whether it's council who makes a decision or the village manager or Jay, I just like that it's within our discretion, not the developer to come in and like invoke this process. So, and I do agree there has been times where perhaps we would have liked to give more time to a conceptual, and we do, I don't think we rush it necessarily, but we are cognizant of, hey, we're an hour and a half into the meeting and we got like 8 more agenda items to get through and we rush a little bit maybe. So I'm fine with it, but what everybody wants to do.
It's really just changing this to council's discretion, not the.
Well, and flipping it, requiring the conceptual, like you said, have the formal, follow the process as we currently have,
Yeah.
because it's working well.
Yeah.
And, but if at that conceptual presentation, if we deem it's going too long or we need to discuss it more, it would be more our discretion to like, hey, let's table this and workshop it at our next workshop meeting. And then that way, like the public has one more chance to come in and talk about it. We can talk additionally. I mean, I guess at that point it's a time thing, right? But I still really encourage the community meetings, I think, because you're going to get people that are going to go to that aren't going to come here.
Yeah.
So I understand what you're saying. Like, we're not hearing everything, but the developers are. And I mean, if they want their project to get approved, they're usually going to, typically you think would take some of that feedback. But I mean, I really think it's a good idea. I've been involved in those, and I'm telling you, like, I've seen so many people show up in them, and like half of them don't come to the actual council meeting.
I agree. I'm not against them. My disappointment is that we don't get all the feedback.
Yeah.
We get general, this is how they felt. Half the real. And again, it's not making us staff, because that's not staff's job to sit there and give us very detailed. Even our minutes for these meetings aren't exactly detailed. So I mean, again, sometimes the development, like Rude's property, I mean, I have to have residents call me, but I didn't get a chance to hear everyone. So I pretty much get only those that are going to contact me.
You can always record it, put it on Zoom, or
That's
use
what I
one
was
of those
gonna say.
And I would say record it. I don't know how that would happen, but
Well, there's a bunch of different AI apps that will do that. I mean, if we notice notice everyone that the meeting's being recorded, can we do that? I guess that's more of a question for you.
I think as long as
Dawn?
everybody gets their consent.
If we notice, if there's like a community meeting and we notice that we're recording the meeting, just audio for minutes, is that permissible?
So
I would.
I think the audio is fine for minutes, as long as it's recorded. There's a recording of it.
We could do that.
As long as that
Love it.
doesn't deter anyone from attending.
I still like that a workshop too, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm saying we should still encourage the community meetings because I think they're really important.
Would you be okay with us, in addition to the workshop idea that you're all on board with, mandating or giving staff the opportunity to mandate that meeting?
The community meeting?
So
I think we should
So right
define-
now, what it's written is if you're doing a planned unit develop or a PCD or a PRD
Yeah.
or unusually complex project, and we always encourage people to do it, right? With the 250 300 Beach Road project that's coming up, we're encouraging them to meet with the Beach Road Association and residents, and we encourage the Rude people to do that. We always encourage, and fortunately, everyone has been nice and cordial. But there are times where people will say, if it's not required, I'm not paying my consultants $5,000 to do this. I'm not walking into a hornet's nest. They will push back on it. So it is helpful for us to have that in the code if council's okay with it.
Do other municipalities have it in their code?
Yeah.
Because I know, I mean, it's done in a lot of others, but I can't honestly tell if it's actually in their code or if it's like what you guys
I used to work in St. Johns
encourage.
County, and anytime you did a PUD in certain overlay districts, it was mandated, and it was a very formal process.
I think with a big development coming in Jupiter, that they are required to do a community meeting for PUD, because I think I just saw an announcement for it. But I don't know how they measure that. If it's for size, what's around the property, because like the Rudes is going to be different than the Beach Road building.
That's a PRD. So it would be a PRD. What are the criteria that you would
PCD,
require?
PRD, or an unusually complex project. Or we could just say projects over certain acreage in the zoning overlays. That's probably the easiest.
I
the
like
cleanest
that
way to
idea,
do
the
it.
language and stuff. Yeah, I like the idea.
Maybe think of the language that you can add.
PCDs, PRDs, anything over 2 acres in an overlay.
And then,
Capture anything coming up without naming them specifically.
Is it just the community around it? Because if it's our entire village community, that's a workshop.
Anyone can come to
yeah,
a
it's
public
open to
meeting,
anyone.
but they would only have to formally invite people within 300 feet.
Okay, so there's a measurement on it.
I think it's
Come
great.
up with some language, and then maybe in the code where, because it is in our code, the conceptual, is it the 78-332? So yeah, maybe just reword it to where, you know, you have to go through that process, but if council deems it necessary to discuss further, like, we have the discretion to, you know, punt it to the next, I would say it has to be the next available workshop, or the, you know, so it's clear that we're not delaying it like 2 workshops out, right? I mean, I think we would owe it to do it for sure at the very next workshop.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then keep it formal. I mean, we're still a formal process, formal public comment, you know, all, like, that won't change.
Right. Yeah, we're not trying to delay.
No, it's been great feedback. We'll bring back some language to the ordinance. And number 11 is a glitch. The other one is photometric plan and dark skies. Any issues?
No.
So why does it say may be required? Shouldn't it be shall be required?
For
Photometric plan, sorry. Item 12, the first sentence. It's photometric plan may be required.
there's sometimes where a project doesn't necessarily need a photometric plan, but I'm okay with changing to shall if you want to.
What project wouldn't require one?
I'm trying to think of an example. A project that's right next to a gas station that already has bright lights there, like on a commercial corridor where you know there's already a ton of lighting around. But for instance, like on the Root property, we want to make sure that they're not adding light pollution on the single-family neighborhood that's right next to them.
I think I should say shall, but then if there's, I don't know.
It's just easier for staff to give some leeway, because otherwise if we say shall, then if it's not in their agenda package, someone could say, there's not a photometric plan, they didn't meet our site plan criteria.
I guess I just want to ensure that if it stays maybe, that, like, I don't want someone that really should need to turn one in argue that they don't have to per the code. Like, I don't know, that's a technicality, but.
So I'll say shall, and then I'll change it to say the community development director may waive the requirement to provide photometric plan in a unique circumstance where the applicant can demonstrate that one is not necessary.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Yeah, and then I have a question about lighting. When you talk about light spilling over, so the McMansions that are going in, they have lights underneath their roof lines, and then there's lights halfway down. So those do shine on some of the neighbors. Is that kind of what this is referencing
This
to?
is just for.
Because those are on all night. They're not on a timer.
This is just commercial and multifamily site plans that would come
Gotcha.
forward, not for single family review.
Okay.
All right, and then the last one is just it's the comp plan provision about bike spaces.
No question.
Comment?
It's fine.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Thank
Jay.
you, Jay.
Good job, Jay. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Of course, I was just gonna say public comment, chatterbox over there. Come on up.
It wouldn't be complete without us.
I know.
I'm sorry, Pat Watkins. I just want to reiterate, Jay, you sort of mentioned it. If you have this workshop on your agenda, a regular workshop agenda, let's say, or even the council agenda, and it's sensitive enough that you have an unusual amount of people here and they get started speaking, just think you need to put the qualifier in the agenda that should the item get excessively long, you'll take it to workshop. If somebody sits here for an hour and a half and they don't get to say something, they're going to be really aggravated. Just a thought.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just the same thing as Pat. I think it's a bad idea to do it in the council first. First of all, I know you're not intimidating. I'm here all the time. I'm not intimidated, but a lot of people are. And the second thing is that I think that people would come to a workshop if it was pretty much that project that they're interested in. And supposing, you've got a whole bunch of people and they're already riled up, you're gonna say, oh, we're gonna stop and you have to come back in 2 weeks. I mean, is that gonna work? Is that gonna bring people back in 2 weeks? They're gonna say,
well, they didn't listen to me, or I didn't get my time to say what I wanted to say at that council meeting because there was so much else on the agenda. The other thing is the community thing. People are, believe me, when it hits the dust that there's a project coming up, there's a lot of community things that are just kind of happening. If you're not there, you're not getting the whole picture. You're not getting people's language. You're not getting anger. You're not getting, yes, it's a great idea. You're not getting any of that. You're getting a synopsis. And that's not right. So people have come to me, the US 1 project is a perfect example. People said, oh, we went to all those meetings and they didn't listen to us. Because that was the perception. A community meeting, they're going to perceive that you didn't listen.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Agenda item 2, review and discuss our latest survey.
So every other year, we, since I've been here, we've done a community-wide survey. In your guys' backup, we have summarized the results of the survey. But one of the things I think that's important is that we have tried to keep very similar questions from year to year, which will allow us to compare to see how we're doing from survey to survey. So what I have done is put together a presentation just to kind of highlight the differences between a 24 and 26 citizen survey. And with that, I have a couple of points or just some things to point out. You know, this presentation compares the results. The percentages that you're going to see are basically either if the results were neutral, satisfied, or very satisfied. And that allows us to get our approval ratings for the specific areas that we're looking at. The most important thing I think is to point out is that we did receive 41% less responses. What that means is, you know, whatever that 190 different less people. It's not from lack of trying. I would say that we actually probably put out more stuff or equal stuff, and we have a further reach now than when we did even in 2024 because we have more people following us. However, we had less respondents. 268 is actually, you can get into the question about is it significantly a statistically relevant survey. And so the less results you have, you actually have a margin or a margin of error that increases. And so now we have, with this results, we're looking at 6 or 7% margin of error when we look at it. So just keep that in mind, is that, you know, less response means that there is a greater margin of error. And, you know, the recommended is that you should be within, you know, 5 or 6% of your population. And so we're probably just under it with the survey, but just point that out. Our demographics 24 versus 26, you'll see that we've grown a little bit, at least with the respondents from 11 to 20 years went up a little bit. We also went up in our less than 5 years. That has increased to 18.2%. So a little bit a slight trend toward newer residents in 2026, but still dominated by the mid 10-year residents, 11 to 20 years. Just an overall summary as we kind of line this out. When including the neutral, satisfied, and very satisfied, the overall sentiments remain very strong across most service categories. Even areas that decline in strong satisfaction, like the water system, will still show a high overall acceptability. The largest, which you guys have seen in your survey, the largest softening remains water system quality. Public and parks safety continue to perform exceptionally well. So now let's kind of go through some of these and highlight on public safety. You'll see that we're pretty stable. The satisfaction for police service is 94.2%, and now in 2026 is still in the 90s. And the fire service 88%, and in 2026 we're still at 87% satisfaction. Parks and Rec, and I won't read them all out, but you can kind of take a look at those. You'll see that slight increase in satisfaction of parks and facilities. I would venture to guess that's probably because of Remembrance Park and some of the work that we've done. Also some improvements to Constitution Park and to Questa Park. The key infrastructure and utilities question, the water system strong satisfaction dropped, and we say dropped, 9%, or 9 points, but it still remains very high, 81%. The question, one of the questions that probably triggered this is, we have a question on here, I think like 4 or 5, that says, name the top 5 things that you think are important for the village in the next, 5 years. And water quality was the number 1. So you'll see that, the satisfaction is triggered probably a little bit by how the question was worded, but we're still seeing high satisfaction rates across the board. Customer satisfaction, it's always warms my heart when we see the customer service part has increased, and then effective communication remain high at 90%. We did look at in this survey, and I think it's in your guys' backup, how people communicate. We are seeing trends, increased participation with social media and things like that. We're obviously the more we trend that way, the easier it is for us to communicate with people, because it's free to put it out on social media, but we still several different avenues to communicate with people. Village action on environmental concerns, we have increased on that. And then code enforcement is always a tough one, but we still remain high. Most enforcement categories range between 65 and 75% overall acceptance. Dissatisfaction remains concentrated amongst smaller but vocal subset. We did have a high no experience response to this question, which is good. Overall sentiment, areas that improve: parks and facilities, street maintenance, environmental action, customer service. Areas that decline, minimal, is water system, sidewalk maintenance, and communication effectiveness. Areas that remain exceptionally strong: police, fire, and parks overall. When using the neutral satisfaction, very satisfied metric, the village maintains high overall service confidence. The community is not broadly dissatisfied, and the shift appears to be from very satisfied to neutral in some areas. Water quality remains the single most sensitive issue. I will say, I see that the numbers dropped a little bit. It's still very high, but I think we've done a lot of things with water quality. I think, so how that is, how they phrase those, the feedback for that, is because we're doing water projects. Is it inconveniencing people, or is it the $10 surcharge? I think there's a lot to be desired there, but I remain proud that we still, have almost a 90% in that, or over 80% with that. Let's see, and then. How do we use this? We have the strategic planning workshop that's coming up. I know in the past, council members have referenced the survey results, and as you guys build your strategic initiative. So, protect and reinforce high performing areas like public safety and parks and rec. We want to restore confidence in infrastructure systems. So maybe it's some messaging that we can do better with our water quality, that we meet all the state and federal guidelines, we meet all the, any of the regulations that we have good water, and so maybe it's a messaging thing more than spending a lot of money. Although council has made significant commitments to a master plan that we're working on, and some water treatment plan upgrades that we have coming online soon. Improved communication strategy. We're shifting to more reactive updates to proactive, and you guys have seen some of the videos and some of the things really telling our story that the village is doing. We're going to address quality of life enforcement priorities like golf cart, T-bikes, construction oversight, align capital investments with resident confidence gaps, like prioritizing projects that directly improve the trust. And then goal is to move neutral sentiment back to strong satisfaction. That would be, the goal of this survey, that we do it in 2 years. Hopefully we're still seeing a high trend of satisfaction and we're moving in the right direction. With that, I can answer any questions. You guys have the overall backup for this specific survey, but that was just kind of a comparison from year to year.
Thank you, Jeremy. Council, I'll open it for discussion.
Thank you. I had a question. It said elaborate, it said mixed opinions on Tequesta Park. Was that just the opinions that were in the comments, or was that something additional?
That was in the comments.
Okay,
I think there
I
were
saw
some
that.
comments that, they were satisfied. I mean, I don't think anybody was like worst ever. I think, and I don't remember the comments right off the top of my head without going through them, but I remember some comments like, oh, we don't use it, or there's no playground, or there's not, versus the passive park versus the active park. I think that was a couple of the comments, but I don't think they were completely negative.
I think, and there was something in there about like how much we approve it, and that would depend on whether we owned it or not. That's all that.
There was some comments for that. But then it was interesting because it was one of the survey questions where it's select one, not input your own comment, and the DeQuesta Park redevelopment outweighed Remembrance Park Phase 2. So I thought that was interesting. Like,
that's right,
DeQuesta
yeah.
Park ranked the
Yeah.
highest redevelopment, but then you had some of those comments. I thought that was really interesting. Like, how do you measure those against each other?
In the demographics, right, I thought with the average age of the survey submitted, it would have been more towards Remembrance Park Phase 2, but it actually ended up, looked like Tequesta Park. I thought that was interesting. Actually, I think that was my only, one question on there. It said, non-residents can rent Constitution Park for birthday parties? Or I guess my question is, can non-residents rent Constitution Park for a party?
Yeah, I believe they can. I believe we do that. I don't think we get a ton of rentals over there, so I don't think we're turning a lot of people away. So I think if we ever got to that point where, every weekend we were having something, we might look at a policy like that, but as of right now, we don't have a policy against it.
Okay, thank you. I like the overall survey. I liked reading the comments. I think some people took time to fill out that part, which was nice. Demographic was probably swayed in one direction, and there wasn't that many submitted. So taking that for what it is, but I appreciate the information and the summaries. Thank you.
I think it's helpful. Obviously, we all wish more people would respond, but not much you can do about that. Short of doing like a what do they call it? Like if somebody gets picked, everybody who responds to the survey, somebody gets something.
Yeah.
Like there's a
Like
Amazon
raffle or
gift card.
something, or-
I don't know, whatever it might be, but
Raffle's not bad.
well, 2 years from now, remember that. But no, I think it's helpful, and I just wish we had more insight into where everybody else was at, but that's okay.
My favorite part is the comments, because again, just like those committee meetings, and then I'm not just looking at numbers, I get to read what they want to write. And some are good and some are not so great, but we got to take it because that's our job. My only question to staff is for the comments that were in the sections where there's written comments, some of them are really easy. Like there's something about a pothole, like there's really easy ones. Is staff gonna just kind of go out and address those? Like we don't have to sit here and tell you each one.
I mean, yeah, if there's a pothole, we
There
address
was
it right away.
there was
like
some
the
easy
survey.
ones, like fix the pothole and whatever. And there's some really
Another was
easy,
like blind spots with shrubs. Like I know if you're
Yeah, so, like, the
turning
easy ones.
on Old Dixie, like you're going west on Bridge Road to Old Dixie, like there's palmettos growing under the sidewalk, and it makes it really hard to see the cars coming northbound on Old Dixie. So like little things like that. And that was one of the comments. Like, is that something staff can just take care of?
I mean,
If we know, if there's something a pothole 2 months ago, I guarantee you, Doug's. Well, I don't say guarantee, but I rest assured that Doug will take care of it if he knows about it. I mean,
I'm not saying he wouldn't, but I'm saying is staff getting these comments. So when there's easy ones like that, or trim this corner because we can't see, can we just go ahead and have staff look through it and fix those things?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Make it super easy.
Yeah,
I mean, I know that's not the most ideal place for some of these comments, but
right.
they don't come here. So our job is to hear them, whether they call, text, email, or stand here. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
So,
I'll just say based on the survey responses, so the ones that you just slipped, and also the comments that you can type in. Like if you look at those compared to like our strategic plan, which we're going to talk about next, that was done before we got the survey results, and I know we use the survey results from before to put together our strategic plan, but I mean everything, even still with this new survey, like really aligns. And so I think, you know, just council and staff really have a good pulse on what the community wants and needs. So that's what I got out of the survey. Like we're in the right direction on all these things, because I think some of the concerns or stuff we know about and we're working on and stuff that they're happy about is because it's, you know, a lot of work and effort we put in to make happen. So I thought that was great. I'm wondering maybe if there's any staff ideas on how to get more people to respond. Like, do we think is it too lengthy? Is it just people aren't interested? I mean, what are some ideas to get, because it was disappointing to see the decrease. Because I mean, it's just kind of a low response to begin with, and for that to go down this year. I mean, what are some ideas or best practices to maybe try to get it? I mean, I saw, you know, we were blasting out on our Friday newsletter and everything, so like the word was out there.
Yeah, I think when we get ready to launch it next time, we'll try to be creative. I mean, it's going to be, you know, we typically do it every other year. So before we launch it next time, we'll try to be creative, see if there's food truck events we can sit out. I mean, you know, special events, concert series. I mean, we can try to be as creative as we can with the resources that we have.
Or a raffle. I like the raffle.
That
Everyone
could
loves a
catch
good
people's
raffle.
attention,
Everyone
right?
loves a good raffle.
Yeah,
Have like a little DeQuesta basket or something.
it's great.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions or comments? Any public comment? Ms. Watkins?
It's just a thought, particularly with the issues about water. When a lot of people read these surveys, they see whether it's water quality you're really addressing. In their mind, they're thinking, my yard's been torn up for a month. You know, they're reacting to the construction and not necessarily the water quality. So even at that, I think it's a little bit skewed. It's, as far as the response, it's notoriously poor, usually. And I know when I was on council, the manager used to tell us all the time, you're not going to hear from them if they're happy. You hear from them when they're not. So some of it is a bit of that. They like what's going on, therefore they don't think they need to give their time to the survey. So it's a hard nut to crack as far as response. I think you guys did a wonderful job. It was weekly, the thing on there, please answer it or whatever. So I don't think that's the problem. It's getting them interested enough to answer. Maybe it's to put it to them where it's really important for you all to hear what they have to say, something along that kind of language. It's important for you all. We want to hear from you. Something a little more encouraging to please take the time.
Yeah, like different messaging.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, moving on, agenda item 3, staff update on our 2025-2026 strategic plan.
Thank you, Mayor. So we've shifted, you know, when we first started this 6 years ago, you know, I know when we had, you know, the council and the mayor, she at one point wanted us to do like a quarterly update. We have since switched to where we have this very transparent online, anybody can see it anytime. I typically try to update these initiatives on a monthly basis. I do them myself. So most of the progress on these initiatives are very transparent, very open. It's a very good document for staff. I think for council too, to look at these. When we first started this, you know, when I came here and hearing from council, it was like, you know, I know staff was kind of chasing initiatives. And so the strategic plan allows the council as a whole to direct staff through these initiatives, and we don't chase things throughout the year or you know, something shiny comes across and we want to do it. This is kind of our roadmap that we use throughout the year. It doesn't say that some of these initiatives might be over, you know, a year period, some of them might be over a 3-year period, some might even be longer than that, but you'll see as I go through these results that, you know, we're making progress on a lot of things that's important to council and some of these initiatives. So there's going to be some that we're going to look to transition off. You guys have the survey results. Staff will have some things that have come up throughout the year, and we'll tie all those things together and hand them to you guys, and then we'll start the next year of strategic planning and hopefully to build on what we've done from year to year. So this guide just guides our long-term priorities and resource allocation. You know, finances are tough and they're tough every year. So this allows us to prioritize those things and make sure we're putting those resources to where it's important. ensures transparency and measurable progress, and we are updating it regularly. If you don't have the website, you just go to the Village Council on our website and go to the top and 25-26 strategic plan, and then we also have the link that people can access. All starts with our vision and mission. So as we lead into the next year's strategic plan, keep our vision and our mission at the forefront when we make decisions. We're trying to get to those two things. Our core values, which is something we stress here, make sure that we're striving for excellence, ethics and transparency, quality of life, our employees, communication, being compassionate not only to our staff but to our residents. As we get into kind of some of the tasks, overall plan tasks, we have 68 action items. So we have an initiative. Each initiative will have action items that go with it. And so out of those 17 initiatives, we have 68 action items. 18% of it is complete, 38% on track, 24% not started, 13% minor disruption, 7% major disruption. And I'm going to highlight a little bit of why or what we're talking about when we do those. But I think, generally we're making good progress with many of the initiatives that we're looking at. We have 4 focus areas, which is the fiscally responsible government. We're 74% complete there. Community appearance and identity, 26%. Municipal infrastructure, 64%. And operational excellence, 80%. So instead of breaking our initiatives down into those 4 categories, I've kind of spread them back out and took them to how we prioritized them when we did the strategic plan. And so we'll have the priorities as they came out through that prioritization that the council did. So our number 1 priority was provide additional funding for the state appropriation to Cuesta Park. We did that. As you guys know, we are working on the construction plans for Cuesta Park. Identify additional CIP funding. We have accounted for roads and sidewalks in the general fund. Obviously, the vehicle maintenance, we have some of that out of the general fund. And this year, we've dedicated 21% of our revenues in utilities so we can do pay-go projects instead of borrowing money. We've also allocated $135,000 to stormwater projects out of the general fund that came from the utility tax. So we've made some strides on trying to make sure that we have some money set aside for those additional CIP funding. As you guys know, December was the last date. I think February or maybe the 1st of March, we're expecting our very last check of the infrastructure surtax. So we will not have any more revenue. And so we're losing roughly $650,000 a year in revenue that we were paying for capital improvement projects. So we're really trying to change our pace and try to find other sources or allocate money so we're not, get a couple of years down the road and have no money for our infrastructure projects. Number 3, I have it in yellow because I think we still have some work to do, but we have allocated $135,000 out of our utility tax which is 50% towards stormwater maintenance. As you guys know, our stormwater fund, we still have some work to do. We have made some strides this year, really tightening the belt, not doing a ton of projects, and hopefully trying to build up that reserve in that fund. So that's why it's in yellow, because I think we still have some work to do, something that we should keep in our strategic plan moving forward until we get there. Employee retention and recruitment. We did a staffing study this past year. Because of the strategic plan initiative, we made some commitments in healthcare. We continue to see significant increases, but our council has pledged that response to that. And so we also included, very competitive wages, and we've tried to always stay competitive with that. This is one that I think we can take off the strategic plan as we move forward, because I think, it's always been something that we've done. And we will continue to do that. I don't know that we need to, necessarily have it on our strategic plan. I think it was important that we had it on here last time because we wanted to make sure that we did the salary study. So that was important to allocate money for that. But we continue to, through unions and, through the budget process, make sure that we're doing our best to retain and recruit. consider Remembrance Park Phase 2. We did decide to postpone that, so that's why this is one of those that major disruption or haven't started. This is one of those, and I know that the survey results will help guide you guys on, when it's appropriate to do that one, or and I know part of it was just trying to see how Phase 1 shakes out. Develop future master plan, facilities plan. A couple of things that we have done, as you guys know, because you guys have made that decision to move forward. The Village Annex or Station 11. We actually had an event, a training going on with the police department for the first time over there. So we have made a commitment and really got that building up. We're still haven't move our code compliance over there, but we have made strides. We also have engaged a firm to develop a master plan, facilities plan, look at the future of the village and where we need to go so we can start planning for that. And so that's underway. We should have that in the next couple months, of at least a draft of that we can look at. 15-year road and sidewalk plans is fully funded, has been for 2 years now. I think this is something we can slowly transition off of the strategic plan. Not to say we won't continue to do that. I think we have the money in the general fund set aside for roads and sidewalks, and we will continue to do that. Expand and improve critical land areas that serve to maintain the village's distinctive features through land acquisition and park improvements. This one, we are waiting the 2026 legislative process for Tequesta Park. I think we're checking a box on this one. I think this one will be something that I think it's important to the village council and the residents that, when there are opportunities for us to acquire land or ask for more green space, that we continue to do that. But hopefully the Tequesta Park local bill, we are waiting for it to hopefully hit the Senate floor for them to vote on it, but that's where it lies right now. Continue education toward policy on golf carts and e-bikes. I think we've done a really good job of doing this. We're obviously waiting. There's going to be some legislative changes, we believe, to the law about requiring, the speed limit on the sidewalks or on the roads. But I think, unless there's a clear measurable for this, I think it's one we can take off our strategic plan. I feel like we've been successful with at least education. Unless there's something different that a different direction the council wants to give staff, I think it's, there's not a lot of measurable there. And so it's hard to keep, for me to say if we check the box or not, unless we can put together something like that. Expand the tree planting efforts, initiate a tree rebate program. We still haven't had any takers on that. I know Jay, Doug, and I, we were having some back and forth today about maybe doing a couple of tree giveaway type things with Arbor Day. And so we're looking at trying to, I think we had $7,500 or $10,000 that we aligned for the tree rebate program. We're looking at trying to do some different stuff with that. But this is one that we've waited before we actually do a full phase, another phase of the tree program. We've been waiting for the phase 2 or the next phase of Tequesta Drive water main. So I expect us to, come in the next year to really look at, are we going to do another phase of trees? I think the last time we planted 63 trees along Tequesta Drive, and so that'll be a discussion, during the strategic plan if we want to move forward with that and budget for that in the future. Implement impact fees for development. As you can see, it's in red. As you guys know, with Senate Bill 180, we can't do anything more burdensome. While we did do, mobility plan, which is number 14, I think we've kind of checked that box. Number 11, it makes it a little tougher at current time for us to move forward with that. I know there's some additional legislation going on, mobility fees and impact fees. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to shake out. To be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure what it's going to do for us, good or bad. Just know that there's something moving. So we'll have to wait until the state figures that out, see if there's any adjustments to Senate Bill 180. So that's why that one's in red, because there's pretty major disruption in that particular initiative. 12 and 13, I kind of combine them because they're very similar, but Improved Village, Gateways, Beautification, All Dixie. We have and I'm very excited about it. We have finally received the final version of the interlocal agreement with Palm Beach County to allow us to start in a 50% partnership with them to do plans for medians and landscaping on Old Dixie. That has been in our strategic plan since 1978. I feel like we're making some strides. It does not mean that there's not, once we get past this stage of the planning, it's going to be 100% cost on us. And so that will be something that the council has to decide, once we get that, the plans and the estimated cost, council's going to have to decide. But that interlocal agreement will come to council probably in April, because it won't make the March meeting. And then the other one that you guys are kind of aware of, we've been working with Martin County on County Line Road up there from US 1 to Old Dixie to put landscaping on the north side on the Tequesta Park side, of putting some trees and some very low maintenance plantings through there. We haven't even got to a shared cost type of a thing. The original discussion, which was really rough out there on Tequesta Park, was that they had some funds that maybe they can use toward it and plant, and then we would be responsible for all the maintenance and upkeep from that point on. So there will be some, discussions. We received kind of and it really was a pencil drawing of what they wanted to put in over there. We're gonna, kick back a little bit and see how we can, I'll say, scope it down a little bit, because we thought it was a little much for what we were asking for. But anyways, that 12 and 13, I think we're a little behind on that one, but I think we are moving as of late. And then number 14, like I said, I think we've checked that box. And now we'll just await the implementation of the impact fees. And the other priorities that were on there, I think these are the last 5, was consider the policy for cross-connection control. As you guys know, that came to council. We're moving forward with that. Going to start with commercial developments, and education is going to be a key aspect of that. Fund Tequesta Bridge future maintenance. We did approve that in the budget. Council will approve it will come to council for approval for the work authorization in April. I think there was still a few things contractual that we needed to work out, but it did come in over our estimated budget by, I believe, $130,000. But I think it's important. We are trying to look at the scope to see if there's anything that we can get it down and we'll say value engineer, but it's looking like it's going to be a little over budget. But I think it's important that we do it all in one shot and move through that. Establish a safe and quiet railroad crossing. As you guys have seen through an email that we recently got, funding is no longer available through grant funding for those safety improvements on Tequesta Drive. That was anywhere from $500,000 to $750,000 that we've been chasing for a year and a half, and now that Brightline and the railroad FRA is have had their issues, the funding's no longer available, and so we are going to try to move forward with a quiet zone application. We will have to engage an engineer. Once we had this discussion with the railroad, Brightline, FDOT specifically, we got a call from FDOT saying that we should try to apply again. Like, the funding's not there, but go ahead and try to apply again. Like, maybe there's an opportunity now to have a quiet zone without going through all those other things. And so we'll see how it goes. I mean, obviously, I think everybody wants the crossing to be safe first and foremost. Everybody, and I mean Brightline, FRA, FDOT. So we're going to see about moving forward with the quiet zone application. I know Doug has reached out to an engineer, because we will have to do a couple of site plans for them to be able to submit. Utility project timeliness and reporting, I think we've done a really good job of that, especially have a project manager, or it was an assistant utility director, but I think everybody from my experience have been happy in the response about the timeliness and reporting. We're obviously still working on the timeliness and trying to, stay on track. We did have a setback to water treatment plant, just because of the change in scope. That'll be coming to you guys, I believe, next month, for trying to get that back online. The SRF funding and, working with the engineer that's been working on that project, which, won't go into that, but we've had some additional problems with the engineer. They lost some staff over there, so we've had some turnover issues with the staff that we were using. And then improved communication with development community. We provide some, health social for developers. I think Wayne's done a good job trying to, email, keep developers on track and with the information that we're doing. And then we facilitated some meetings with developers, provide opportunities at Rec Center. And so, unless there's a clear measurable for us on that, like, I would suggest we transition it off unless anybody else has any other ideas for that one. And so this is just our steps. I know you guys have this information, so I don't know that I need to go through it, but we will consider a new strategic plan. April 13th is our tentative workshop for that. I think it's probably a little better than tentative because I think we've put it on everybody's calendars. And then I always got to add a quote, so.
You're not gonna read it?
Oh, you want me to read it? I thought everybody else was. I was tired of talking myself. But if you don't know where you're going, you might end up somewhere else. So, we don't want to end up down south or anywhere else. So let's make sure that we keep Tequesta.
Thank you, Jeremy. Council, open up for discussion.
No, we have a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm really looking forward to it, and I think you hit it all. Good job.
No, I'm good.
I got a couple on the items that it says, minor disruption, major disruption. Is there any common pattern as far as, is it funding? Is it outside influences? Is it us? Is there anything that we can work on as a council, or are these outside influences?
Well, if you just look at, we'll look at a couple. I mean, and I only see 2 or 3. So if you look at consider Remembrance Park, that was something council decided to wait on. And then you look at, implement impact fees. We couldn't we couldn't implement those due to the state legislation at this point. Even the stormwater being a little bit behind on that. I think that's something maybe just keep that in focus, and a top priority for council is to make sure that we build that stormwater fund up. The quiet zone and railroad crossing, man, if I had an answer for that, we wouldn't still be talking about it a couple of years later. So, I think we have a direction now. We've been kind of in limbo for probably the last year with this, this carrot that we were going to have some state funding, or we we're going to have some, grant funding for the safety improvements. That just ain't there anymore. And so now we have a direction, and we're going to, go as hard as we can in that direction and see how far we get. So those are just, I think, the only ones that were really like major disruption or not moving. And unless you have any thoughts on those of how you guys could help, I think the stormwater is probably the biggest one.
Okay. And then there's a few comments on some of the items you had. So the tree rebate program, I participated in the first program, which was a little bit different. I filled out an online application, went to work one day, came back, there's a giant tree in my front yard, 16-footer, and that was easy. This new one, great idea, there's a lot of red tape. I had it on my list of things to do for months, and then I go and pull it up, I'm like, I don't have time. And so, maybe I'm not the only one with that feeling. I could be wrong, but that's the immediate reaction, the real life reaction I got. On Remembrance Park, I know that we were revisiting and focusing on Tequesta Park possibly in the future after owning it. Makes sense. One recommendation I would have for council, especially in case I'm not here in the future, is if we could connect just those 2 parks. It doesn't have to be elaborate, the full phase 2, but connecting those parks for Seabrook and Riverside and everyone to connect through there, I think would be a huge benefit to the community. And I know it's in our mobility plan, but it seems like a pretty easy fix to connect those two. And for the kids and the families to go back and forth. To Cuesta Pine, Riverside, in that area. The other question I had on post office status, it was a strategic plan because it's a little bit out of our purview, but I feel like it's a black eye. I went there last night to drop off a package, and I was just like, what is this? What is happening here? And it's better. It's absolutely better, but it's far from, our standard or what we would expect from our businesses or residencies. So if there's anything we can do as a council, or I'll not volunteer everybody, volunteer myself, I'm happy to do that for the post office. Because when my kids notice something, I'm like, it's bad. And on the quiet zone, I feel really bad for those people that are right next to it. And I know we've done what we can, and it's extremely expensive. But at this point, I almost think the timeline has run out for other options. And you're going towards an application, and we'll see what happens. But I would suggest there's a plan to start funding the worst case scenario. Because those neighborhoods just can't be left with that horn all night. That's got to be complete just torture for them. I mean, I hear it enough as it is, but it's very faint for me. So I could not imagine being right there on that line. I've lived in a condo in West Palm before, right there next to the convention center, before quiet zones, and they didn't tell me about that. And I was on the 16th floor with the thickest windows you could possibly imagine, right? You can't hear anything. And when that train would go by, the place would just, erupt in sound and noise. So I feel really bad for those people. And that was all I have.
So just a couple things. I know our council in the past has said the same thing that you have about the post office, and then we got together and we wrote a formal letter on behalf of the council, send it, not much. We've reached out, and I think they've been very responsive. Brian Mass's office has really helped us, and to get it even close to what it is, and I know the mayor has, been in contact with Mass's office too, and so we've really, done our best to try to compel them to do it, but there's no real mechanism to make them, and always their answer is, that they don't have the staff, or at one point they didn't have the equipment was broken, or it just seems like there's always some reason, and I don't, unless there's an answer, I don't have it, and I don't know what else to do. I could send you guys a lengthy just chains of emails that we went back and forth, and the mayor's going to be in some of those chains as well, and we've offered to volunteer to go out there and clean it myself. I'll take my kids out there and do it. And they said, no, you can't do that because it's a union issue. The union employees need to be able to do the work. And so it seems like it's one thing after another, and I don't have an answer, but I'm all ears. I'm all ears. So.
Yeah, and I'm not pointing any blame.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. And for me, a union should help a organization be more productive. And so I would ask, please put me in touch with whomever I can find out who is part of that. And if that really is the issue, I'd enjoy to have a conversation with them and maybe move things along.
And we have community members. Like, I've had residents reach out to me, and they're like, I will go do work.
Sure.
So, our own residents are willing to volunteer.
We have residents that are willing to put money.
Which is unfair.
That's just
but,
I know, I'm just saying.
I don't know if you guys have been there lately.
Oh,
It's bad.
Yeah.
It's
Hope
been
Sound's the
bad.
same way. Driving by Hope Sound, it's exactly the
Jupiter
same.
doesn't look great.
They took out the drive-through lanes and left it, and then everything with the drive-through lanes, they don't even upkeep. They don't blow it, nothing. So it just looks, all the leaves and grass are just sitting there. It's the exact same way. They say they don't have the funding to do it. That's the number one issue. And then that obviously talks about staff and maintenance, but from the federal government isn't funding the maintenance of those buildings anymore.
Cool. Thank you.
You said the Jupiter one looks bad too? I can't
Not
even
quite
think
as
of where
bad,
that one is.
but it's, I think I heard someone say that.
I think it's
too.
white or gray though, it's not taupe.
Jupiter's a mess.
Yeah, it's been a minute since I've been there, but
I think
Yeah.
Jupiter to Cuesta, that person may be over Hope Sound too. I'm not sure. I know they're over Jupiter and Tequesta branches. The same person is.
Gardens doesn't look much better.
I mean, maybe we can ping them again. I think it's been a couple months since we
It's been a
talked
couple
to
months. Yeah.
their office. I mean, this has gone on for years before you were on council.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kyle Stone was on council still when we first sent the letter, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, years. It's pretty bad, right?
That's pretty bad.
And I think for the quiet zone, I think, the path forward is trying to apply for the quiet zone, and then at that point, let them give us what needs to be improved. And before we can, or maybe they come back and say, yeah, you guys are good, go for it. And then at that point, we can make a decision on whether we're gonna long-term fund those improvements or not. I think that's the step now.
So, we approved it, March 2024, proceeding with the quiet zone.
Mhm.
So it's been 2 years. And I mean, talk about government not working for you.
Yeah.
It's absurd. And I know we've done everything we can. And is it worth reaching out to Mast and Moody's office to let them know what's going on? Because I feel awful for the people that live really close. I mean, in my house, I can hear not only horns, but you can hear the wheels on the tracks from my house. And there's got to be someone else I can talk to try to push this along, because it's completely absurd. And I sit at the Riverside light, and they don't have near the requirements that we have been told we have to put in for safety. Someone can easily turn off of A1A and weave through the arms while they're down. So, it's absurd the hoops that we've had to go through when I see other areas that have quiet zones that weren't nearly put up to the same standards that we were told. I understand there's some weird formula if you have multiple crossings, which makes no sense in my head from a safety standpoint. But I don't know. I'd be happy to reach out to Mass and Moody's office as well. But I don't know. I think we're at that point, because it's just been ridiculous what we've had to go through with that. So I don't know what you guys think about reaching out.
I think, we should do anything we can possibly do, and I'm happy to help, because I have all the correspondence, and it kind of ebbs and flows, but that's probably where we get the most, and I certainly understand their frustration. But I do believe we're doing everything. We have made great efforts to make it happen, but let's keep going.
Yeah.
I'm fine with working towards it. I just want to say too, I know we've had public comment that we are doing this for 5 people, but it's not 5 people. You can hear it on the west side. You can hear it at all times of the day. So I just want to say we are doing it as a whole. Clearly some live closer. I can't imagine what that's like, because I can hear it on the west side. But it's not just 5 people or a handful or one HOA. It is multiple people in the village that we are looking into this for.
And the businesses too. It's not just the residents, there's businesses along there as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how disruptive is that during the day for you? And just hearing it all the time. But I know National League of Cities is really involved at the congressional level with rail safety right now. Maybe look into what they're doing. I think they even have some articles in their, I think their email blast goes out over the weekend. I don't know if there's any kind of avenue there for us too, but worth just checking. And then you touched on the stormwater. So we approved, when was the strategic plan officially approved? Was it May or June?
March of last year.
We approved it in March, or we workshopped it in March? When was actually formally approved?
I think our workshop last year was in February.
Oh, it was
so
earlier?
pretty-
Okay. So technically it's been a year then.
Yeah.
Okay. So for the stormwater, that was on one of the questions on the survey where you can do, people can prioritize issues or, items to work on. Improved stormwater management was one of the top. So redeveloped Cuesta Park was one of the top. Improved stormwater management and sidewalks. Those all scored high for priority to be done. So I think we should definitely strive to continue improving that. Do you think with what we did with some of the water utility tax, do you think that is going to show a visible improvement that the community will be able to see with some of those projects planned with those funds?
I mean, I think it's a slow process. I think we're probably, 2 or 3 years away from really being back to a good spot with those funds. We've made, as you guys can probably recall, last couple of years we had some emergency repairs we've done. So we've made a lot of repairs or a lot of work to the stormwater. We feel like we're in a better spot with it, but now it's just about trying to build that reserve back up, to where we can do some more proactive. We've been very reactive in the stormwater fund. And so I think we're a couple of years away before we really feel comfortable with the same level of funding. I don't think we want to, raise rates or anything like that. So with, more than, our standard 3% or whatever that we do every year. So I think if we can continue down that path with the utility tax and our normal rate structure, I think we'll be all right in a couple of years to really feel comfortable again and be able to do a couple projects a year, have a little bit of maintenance money. But obviously, from a staff standpoint, the quicker we can get to those things, the better we all feel. But I think, from a just feel-good standpoint, we've still got a couple of years of work to do.
Okay. I think this is a problem with survey results, right? It's so general, improve stormwater management. Well, where, right? It was ranked so high, but is it stormwater management because when it rains real bad, how it floods near, it's on DeQuesta Drive, kind of when you Fiesta and you get close to Cypress, it always floods there. So it's are people saying it because that floods when it rains real hard, or is it someone's flooding in front of their house? It's just hard to gauge from the survey exactly what's important to people and the issues that they're seeing at locations that they're seeing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's really important to keep focusing on for next year. Okay, that's all I had. Any other discussion?
No, thank you.
Nope. Any public comment?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry.
Mr. French is right about the tree thing. It was easy before and it's convoluted now. On the stormwater, you're right. It's now where I am, there's a real problem on Riverside because the ditch is too low. And so some of your responses might have been that, but that's a county problem. I mean, we know about it and it's terrible, but we can't do anything about it. It's a county problem other than push them. So some of that could be just regional. It always floods here, but they don't really know who has jurisdiction over it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. With that, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Do you have artificial turf in your backyard? Because I got this problem. So tell me about artificial turf.
You love it because of our.
The plan for that strategic meeting in April 13th is at 9 a.m. I see it on my calendar.
So much more.
Are we kind of guaranteed to be out of here by 2?
I was on the fence.
That's a question for you guys, but that's what
We usually have.
we shot for 2
Because
last year.
I
I think
have,
we by lunch, we already